It was one of those rare days. Amelia, the powerful Iron Lady of Crestville Holdings, left the office 2 hours early, a decision that surprised even her secretary. "Madam, are you sick?" the girl whispered. "No," Amelia replied flatly, tossing her back seat of her black Prado Jeep. "I just want to see my daughter before she sleeps, for once." The driver didn't dare ask questions. Nobody did, not with Amelia. She was a boss in the boardroom, a storm in stilettos, and the woman every man wanted but couldn't keep. Her marriage had dissolved like sugar in rainwater. But she didn't care. Not then. Candy was her everything. Her 8-year-old angel with chubby cheeks and a deep dimple. The roads of Abuja were slightly free that day, as if the universe had cleared the path for her to witness the unthinkable. As the gate slowly creaked open, Amelia noticed something odd. The security man, Baba Yusuf, was sweating, his uniform buttoned the wrong way, and his eyes jittery. "Good evening, Ma," he stammered. "No need to greet me like I'm a ghost," Amelia said dryly, already sensing something was off. "Where is Candy?" She day for inside, madam." With her heels clicking like judgment, Amelia walked into the living room. The AC was on, TV was off. Silence, too silent. Her heart skipped. She heard muffled voices coming from Candy's room. She walked gently, softly, like a thief in her own mansion. The door wasn't locked, it was just slightly ajar. Amelia pushed it open, only a little at first, just enough to see shadows dancing on the pink walls. Then she heard it. That voice, a deep masculine voice, not reading a storybook, not reciting multiplication tables, whispering. "Don't tell Mummy, okay? This is our little secret." Amelia's heart fell. She pushed the door wide open and froze. Her brain tried to catch up with her eyes, but her soul had already screamed. There was Candy, her daughter, her only child, sitting still on the bed, and the lesson teacher, Mr. Victor, kneeling in front of her, with his hands exactly where they should never be. The man turned sharply, his face a mix of shock, guilt, and shameless boldness. "Ma, you didn't tell me you were coming." Before he could finish, Amelia's handbag flew across the room and hit him square in the face. "You animal!" She roared like a mother lion whose cub was being dragged by a hyena. Victor stumbled back, hitting the edge of the bed, blood dripping from his nose. "You touched my daughter? My daughter?" Candy whimpered, clutching her teddy bear, eyes wide like saucers. "Mummy, I didn't want to. He said you wouldn't come back today. Again." And that's when Amelia broke. She sank to her knees, in her own house, on the marble floor she paid for, wearing a power suit that cost more than most people's rent. But none of that mattered now, because in all her billions, all her awards, and all her magazine covers, she couldn't protect her child. The child who waited every night, staring at the gate. The child who smiled through loneliness. The child who trusted a monster. Because Mummy was too busy building an empire and didn't know her home was on fire. "Candy," she whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry." But the damage was done. And what made it worse? This wasn't Victor's first time. The man she trusted had been doing this for months, and Candy had been too scared to speak. What happens next will leave your heart shattered. Subscribe. This story is not just a story, it's a warning. No matter how busy life gets, come home, unannounced. The house was no longer silent. Candy sat stiffly on the edge of the bed, fingers digging into her teddy bear as though it could protect her. Victor, still crouched now with blood running down his cheek, didn't move. Amelia towered above him like a goddess of wrath. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with unspeakable rage. "You've been doing this? In my house?" she asked slowly, dragging each word like it burned her tongue. Victor licked his busted lip. "Ma, I didn't mean to." Slap! The sound echoed. Loud, disrespectful, deserved. "Shut up," she snapped. "Don't say another word before I kill you here and bury you beside the flower pot, and no one would question it because this is Abuja." Victor trembled. Candy whimpered softly. Amelia turned sharply to her daughter, her expression softening like melting ice. "Sweetheart, baby, has he?" She couldn't even say the words. Candy just nodded slowly, eyes still fixed on the floor. Amelia's stomach twisted. Her lungs refused to take in air. She backed away, hand over her mouth, fighting the bile rising in her throat. She almost threw up. She almost collapsed. But then she stood up straighter than ever. Her fingers reached for her phone. Victor suddenly jumped to his feet. "Ma, please, I beg you, don't call police. I beg," he cried, falling to his knees again. "I have a wife, children. It was the devil, I swear." "Oh, really?" she said, eyes wide with mock pity. "So it's the devil who teaches math and molests children at the same time?" She laughed. A dry, cold, sarcastic laugh. "So you mean my money is what feeds your family while you're here destroying mine?" Victor started crawling toward her legs, desperate. "Ma, please, if this news reach outside, my life is finished." "I don't care," she screamed, kicking him away. Candy flinched. Amelia noticed. Her voice broke again. "Oh, Candy, my baby." She dropped to her knees and wrapped Candy tightly in her arms. For the first time in years, she didn't care about her wig, or her designer blouse, or her image. She cried, loud, broken sobs that could crack glass. Candy just laid her head on her mother's shoulder. "Mummy, please don't leave me again," she whispered. Amelia held her tighter. "Never, never again, my love." She kissed her forehead over and over. Then she slowly stood and turned back to Victor, her face now wiped of tears. Just one call. She dialed. "Hello? Yes, this is Mrs. Amelia Aid King. I need your team at my residence. Right now. Someone's going to prison tonight." Victor's eyes widened. "Prison? Ma, don't call me Ma," she said with disgust. "Call me Madam Jailer, because I'm the reason your evil life ends tonight." She dropped her phone and stared at him, hatred burning in her eyes. And then the most haunting part came. Candy spoke. "Mummy, he said if I tell you, you'll hate me." Amelia turned, shocked. "What?" Candy sniffed. "He said, you'll blame me, that you'll think I'm dirty." Amelia's whole world spun again. She walked up to Victor, grabbed the nearest flower vase, and smashed it against the wall beside his head. "If you ever speak to her again, I will forget my humanity." Victor sobbed. But Amelia wasn't done. She marched to the living room, grabbed the house CCTV remote, and rewound the tape. She prayed it caught something. She paused. Her hand shook. And there it was, a few weeks ago. Victor, ushering Candy into her room, locking the door behind him. Her blood ran cold. And in that moment, she made a vow. She wasn't just going to send him to jail alone. She was going to destroy everything he had. And that was the beginning of the real battle. The battle has just begun. The mother is awake. The child is broken. The monster thought he was safe. So, the sound of approaching sirens echoed faintly through the high fence walls. Victor heard it first. He jumped to his feet and ran toward the kitchen. Maybe he thought he'd hide, or escape, or disappear into the tiles. But Amelia was faster. She grabbed the mop stick leaning by the fridge and struck him across the back. "Try it," she growled through clenched teeth. "Try running. Let's see if your ancestors will carry your legs through my gates." Victor fell, screaming. "Please, please, please, don't let them take me. I'll do anything, madam. Amelia, mercy." She didn't even blink. She just turned to Baba Yusuf, who had crept into the house like a thief. "You," she said coldly, pointing at him. "You've been at this gate every day and you never saw anything." "Madam, are you blind or are you part of it?" "No, madam," he fell to his knees. "I swear on my children, I know anything," she hissed. "Pack your things. You're leaving my house tonight." "Madam, I beg, leave." At that moment, 3 police officers stormed in, guns holstered, vests tight. "Good evening, madam." Amelia didn't bother with greetings. She just pointed at Victor, who was now shivering on the floor. "That's him. Arrest that thing before I do something irreversible." The officers didn't hesitate. Victor tried to beg, but it was too late. They dragged him like a stray dog. One of them read his rights while the other handcuffed him. "You're under arrest for the sexual assault of a minor." Victor wailed. "It wasn't like that. She's lying. She seduced me." That was it. Amelia charged at him with a scream no one had ever heard before. Even the officers had to hold her back. You dare blame my daughter? She's 8. 8, you demonic piece of filth. The neighbors had started gathering by the gate. Phones were out. Madame Amelia Ada King, the Iron Lady of Abuja, was crying and fighting like a madwoman, and they caught it all on camera. But for once, she didn't care. Let them record. Let the world see. Let them judge me. But not my daughter. Never again. As the police dragged Victor away, Candy peeked from behind the pillar, watching silently. Amelia ran to her, knelt, and held her tiny hands. Candy, listen to me. You are not dirty. You are not wrong. Nothing that man said is true. You are beautiful. You are innocent. And you did nothing wrong. Candy's lips trembled. Tears finally fell. Can I still call you Mummy, even if you're always busy? Amelia gasped. Oh, baby. She pulled her into her chest again. From today, I'll be busy being your mummy. I promise. Later that night, Amelia sat alone in her room. Her phone buzzed nonstop. News agencies, journalists, even NGOs were reaching out. But she wasn't thinking about them. She was replaying every moment she ever left Candy with someone else. Every missed school play, every unasked question, every lonely lunch. And now this. She walked into Candy's room and saw her sleeping, cuddled up with her teddy bear, her face peaceful, but her fingers were twitching in her sleep. Nightmares. Amelia sat beside her, fighting tears. And then she looked at her phone again. She opened her gallery and played the CCTV clip again. The same scene. Victor ushering Candy in, locking the door. But then something else caught her eye. The day before. Victor wasn't alone. There was another man in the house, talking to Victor, laughing and handing him an envelope. Amelia's heart stopped. She zoomed in. Her mouth fell open because the man in that footage was her ex-husband. Her mind paced even though her body sat still, frozen in disbelief. She rewound the CCTV footage again, paused, zoomed. There he was, Philip, Candy's father, her ex-husband, the man who walked out of her life 6 years ago and hadn't looked back, the same man who vanished after telling her she was too ambitious to be a wife. Now, here he was, inside her house, smiling, chatting with Candy's lesson teacher like old pals. She stared at the envelope Philip handed over. It wasn't thick, but whatever was inside, Victor had looked pleased, too pleased. She replayed the moment frame by frame, Victor counting cash, Philip whispering something in his ear, Victor nodding, then both men shaking hands like a deal had just been sealed. And then, just seconds before the footage cut off, Philip walked down the hallway and paused, right in front of Candy's room. He didn't enter, but he stood there for 13 seconds, watching the door and smiling. Amelia's blood turned to ice. She grabbed her phone and called the officer in charge. Inspector, it's me. I need to come to the station. Tonight. At the police station, 11:38 p.m. Victor sat in the interrogation room with his head down, his mouth zipped shut since his arrest. Until the door opened. Amelia stepped in, alone. 2 officers stood by the tinted glass watching. Victor looked up. His face was bruised from the slap earlier, but his eyes still had that arrogant glint. Come to finish me off? He mocked. Amelia smiled softly, too softly. No, she said, sitting opposite him, crossing her legs. I just came to ask, who paid you to hurt my daughter? Victor blinked. You think this was about money? I saw the video. Victor looked away. Ah, he muttered. Of course you did. Amelia leaned in. Was it Philip? Victor's face twitched. His lips trembled. I'll be charged anyway, he mumbled. What's the point of keeping quiet now? Then talk, he chuckled bitterly. You powerful women always think you're in control. Amelia didn't speak. Victor sighed. Yes, it was Philip, your husband. Ex, whatever. He paid me, told me to catch your daughter in a compromising position. Amelia's breath caught. What? He said you needed a scandal, something to humble you, to bring you to your knees. Said Candy was the key. Victor looked up, his voice hollow. He said if the world saw you couldn't even protect your own child, they'd strip you of every board seat, every award, every company share. Silence. Amelia's fingers tightened into fists. He said if I could get a video, of Candy doing something inappropriate or scared or vulnerable, that he'd pay me $5 million. Tears filled her eyes. Why? She whispered. Victor shrugged. Said you ruined his life, took his daughter, took his respect, said you were too proud, too rich. Amelia rose from her chair. Her heels echoed like gunshots across the tile floor. She walked to the glass window and whispered to the officers. Find him. Bring him in. No bail. Back at the mansion, 1:12 a.m., Candy screamed in her sleep. Amelia rushed into her room. Mummy! Candy cried, grabbing her arm. Please don't let him come back. Please don't let him touch me again. No one will ever touch you again, Candy, she said, holding her close. Not while I'm alive. Candy's eyes were wide open now. He said, you wouldn't believe me, like Daddy didn't believe me when I told him. Amelia froze. What did you say? Candy looked up. The first time Victor touched me, Daddy visited. That was the time you traveled to Europe last 3 months. Amelia's ears rang. You told your father? Candy nodded slowly. But he laughed and said I was making it up. Then he said not to tell you, or you'd be angry. A silence so loud filled the room. Amelia couldn't breathe. Philip had known. He knew. He didn't just plan it. He started it. He watched it. He covered it. He fed it. And now the pieces all made sense. He didn't leave because of her ambition. He left because he has a lot to hide from her. And now he was coming for everything she loved. The next day. Morning broke in Abuja, but for Amelia, it felt like the sun had died. She sat by Candy's bedside, holding her tiny fingers as she slept again. The child had cried herself into exhaustion. No cartoons, no breakfast, just tears and trembles. Amelia hadn't moved an inch all night. She didn't even blink. Her heart was no longer broken. It was sharpening itself into a weapon. She dialed her assistant. Cancel every meeting, every board session, every investor dinner, until further notice. Ma? The assistant stammered. You have a conference with the Minister of Commerce today. I said cancel, or you'll be job hunting by noon. Then she called Inspector Henry again. Did you find him? The officer replied. Your ex-husband was picked up an hour ago. He's in custody. Amelia said nothing for a moment. Don't let him go, not even if the president calls you himself. At the police station, 8:42 a.m., Philip sat in the interrogation room like a man waiting for a manicure. Clean shirt, fresh cologne, no remorse. The officer stepped aside as Amelia entered. She didn't slam the door. She didn't scream. She simply sat across from him. Calm, but deadly. He smirked. Wow, look who finally has time for me. Amelia folded her arms. Cut the nonsense, Philip. You paid a predator to destroy your own daughter. Philip chuckled. I knew you'd twist it. Twist, she snapped. She told you, Philip, 3 months ago. She begged you. He sighed, resting his head on his palm. Amelia, 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 you're always so dramatic. That girl lies. Like you. She gets it from you. That was it. Amelia stood and slammed both hands on the table. She is 8. Philip flinched, but covered it with a smirk. I wasn't the reason you left, isn't it? She asked. You didn't leave because I was too rich or too bold. You left because you had devilish plan. Philip leaned back, eyes darkening. I left because you made me feel useless. You emasculated me in front of your staff, in front of my own daughter. I gave you everything, Amelia hissed, even when you had nothing. You were a struggling architect, Philip, when I met you. I used my connections to push your career. Exactly, he barked. You made me your project. You made me feel like a charity case. So your response was to destroy our child? Her voice broke. Philip leaned in, smiling slowly. I didn't touch her, Amelia. Victor is your monster. I wasn't the one. I just gave him permission. Silence. Complete. Deadly. I wanted to humble you, he added coldly. You took everything. Your name was everywhere. You walk into rooms now, and people forget I ever existed. I just wanted you to feel powerless, for once. Amelia stared at him for a long time, and then whispered, You are already dead to me. But now, I'll bury your name. She walked to the door. Wait, he said calmly. You think Victor is the only secret I've been keeping? Amelia paused. Philip leaned back and folded his arms. Ask yourself, Madam Boss, why has Candy always had nightmares, even before Victor came along? Amelia turned slowly. What do you mean? He chuckled. Ask her about Uncle Felix, my cousin, the one who used to babysit when we traveled. Ask her. Amelia's knees nearly buckled. No? Oh, yes. Philip smiled like a demon in human skin. You built an empire, Amelia, but the rot started years ago, right under your roof. You just didn't notice. Back at the mansion, 11:10 a.m. Candy was coloring on the living room floor when Amelia came in. Mummy, she said softly. Amelia sat down beside her. Sweetheart, she began, her voice shaking. I want to ask you something very important. Candy looked up, nervous. Do you remember Daddy's cousin, Uncle Felix? The color drained from Candy's face. She nodded slowly. He used to hurt me when I was smaller, but I thought if I forgot it, it would stop. Amelia covered her mouth and cried, silently. Another secret, another crack in her daughter's soul. She hugged Candy so tightly, like she could rewind time. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry, my baby. The secrets are deeper than Amelia ever imagined. The pain didn't start with Victor. It started before Candy could speak. But now, Amelia is no longer a mother. She's a war machine. And everyone who touched her daughter will pay. A moment later, Amelia stood in her closet, staring at her reflection, not at her face, but into her eyes. They were no longer warm, no longer tired. They were cold, awake, lethal. She changed into black jeans, a white shirt and sneakers. No jewelry, no lashes, no perfume. This wasn't a power dress moment. This was war. 11:40 a.m., Crestville Holdings Executive Lounge. Her private investigator, Mr. Sampson, a quiet, gray-haired man who'd worked with ex-generals and politicians, was already waiting with a brown envelope. He looked up when she walked in. No bodyguards today? He asked. No, she said, taking the seat across from him. I want this personal. Sampson nodded. I did a full trace on Felix Dogo. I thought it would be difficult. But it turns out he left digital footprints all over the place. He slid the file to her. Amelia opened it. Inside were photos. Felix in a hotel lobby. Felix withdrawing cash from an ATM near the airport. Felix holding a small suitcase, heading into a cab. He's booked a flight to Côte d'Ivoire. Private booking. Amelia smiled. That means he's panicking. Maybe he's notified. Sampson nodded, handing her a printed message. This came from an encrypted number. Philip tried to warn him through a mutual contact, but too late. Amelia read it. She knows. Run. Now. Her smile vanished. You know what I want, Sampson, she said calmly. I don't just want an arrest. He nodded. You want a reputation destroyed, a life erased, legal and public. Yes. Make it ugly. Meanwhile, at 1:17 p.m., back at the house, a child psychologist was speaking softly to Candy. Toys scattered around, papers filled with drawings. Candy pointed to one she drew, a small girl, surrounded by tall, faceless shadows. The therapist paused. Who are these? Candy hesitated, then whispered, Uncle Felix was the first shadow, then Daddy became the second, then Mr. Victor. She looked down. Mummy used to be one, but she came back. She pushed the shadows away. Tears filled the therapist's eyes. 3 at Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport, Abuja. Felix was checking in, sweating. His flight was scheduled for 4 p.m. He moved fast, hoping to avoid drawing attention. He didn't see the plainclothes officer watching from a distance, or the immigration officer holding a printout of his face, or the 5 silent officers waiting at the boarding gate. As he handed in his ticket, Mr. Felix Dogo? Yes? Please come with us. For what? The handcuffs were already out. People turned. Phones came out. He screamed, but it was too late. By 3:26 p.m., he was in the back of a black police van, and the world had started to whisper. 4:41 p.m., TV breaking news. Shocking update. Business tycoon Amelia Aid King's ex-husband and his cousin arrested in connection to a child abuse ring involving their 8-year-old daughter. Shocking footage and revelations have left the city stunned. Human rights activists are calling for full prosecution, and a national inquiry may be underway. 5:12 p.m., back at the mansion. Amelia turned off the TV. Her phone buzzed nonstop. She looked down at Candy, who was sleeping peacefully on her lap, for the first time in years. Peacefully. Then her eyes wandered to the framed photo on the table. A younger Philip, smiling, holding Candy as a baby. She stood up, took the frame, and smashed it against the floor. Candy didn't stir. She is still sound asleep. A few days later, the courtroom was packed, not with just lawyers and police, but with journalists, human rights groups, child protection agencies. Even the Chief Justice of the state had sent a representative. The case was now public. State versus Philip Ada King, Victor Adam, and Felix Dogo. And seated at the far end, wearing a white top and blue jean and not a shred of emotion, was Amelia Ade King. She didn't blink. She didn't cry. She just held Candy's teddy bear in her lap, her hand gripping it like a sword. The judge entered. A stern woman in her late 50s, known for one thing: no mercy for child abusers. Court is now in session, the clerk announced. One by one, the accused were brought in. Philip, head held high, still wearing that arrogant smirk. Victor, shaking, pale, sweating through his cheap shirt. Felix, in chains, eyes darting like a rat in a trap. The crowd booed. The judge banged her gavel. Order! The case began. The prosecution laid it all out. CCTV footage showing Victor's disturbing behavior. Bank records linking Philip's payment to Victor. Candy's recorded testimony describing Felix's abuse. A past medical report revealing signs of trauma years ago. Felix's attempted escape. And finally, a witness statement from a maid who once caught Felix in Candy's room years back and was fired the next day by Philip. Gasps filled the room. Then came the final blow. A DNA test dated 8 years ago, proving that Philip knew Candy was biologically his child, yet still offered her innocence as a sacrifice to ruin Amelia. The courtroom went silent. Even the walls seemed to hold their breath. The judge stood. She removed her glasses slowly. Her voice was cold, controlled, but brutal. In all my 32 years of practicing law and justice, I have never sat through a more horrifying case of betrayal, greed, and wickedness masked as fatherhood. She pointed at Victor. You were entrusted with a child who looked up to you. You were supposed to teach her numbers and letters. Instead, you introduced her to fear, to trauma, and to silence. She looked at Felix. You, who was meant to be family, you touched an infant before she could even explain what pain was. Then you tried to run, but evil always leaves footprints. Then she turned to Philip. And you, the mastermind, her own father, you saw your daughter's body as a weapon, not something to protect, but something to exploit for revenge against a woman who simply chose success. The courtroom was silent. People wept. The judge sat again and picked up the sentencing sheet. Let it be known today that this court is not just sentencing criminals. We are burying monsters. She slammed the gavel. Sentencing. Mr. Victor Edom, life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Found guilty of repeated sexual assault of a minor, psychological manipulation, and attempted coercion for blackmail. Mr. Felix Dogo, life imprisonment plus 10 years extra. Found guilty of molestation, child endangerment, and attempted evasion of justice. Mr. Philip Ade King, 25 years in prison, complete revocation of all paternal rights. Found guilty of conspiracy to exploit a minor, child endangerment, deliberate cover-up of abuse, and attempted blackmail. And let it be written, the judge added, that none of these men shall have any contact, direct or indirect, with the victim, Candy Ade King, for the rest of their lives. The crowd erupted in applause and tears. The judge rose. This court is adjourned. Outside the courtroom, Amelia stepped into the sun with Candy in her arms. Reporters rushed. Cameras flashed. But for the first time in months, she didn't feel heavy. Candy looked up at her. Mummy? Yes, baby. Are the shadows gone now? Amelia smiled gently. They're not just gone, sweetheart. They're locked up in darkness now. Forever. And they walked toward the car. Free. Together. And this time, Amelia was never letting go. After the courtroom storm had passed and the dark clouds of betrayal cleared, Amelia returned home to a silence that felt different. This time, it wasn't the emptiness of guilt. It was the peace of healing. Candy was home, not just physically, but emotionally. And Amelia, though still shattered in places, was ready to pick up the pieces. Their penthouse, once cold and echoing with distance, now hummed with quiet joy. Photographs appeared on the walls, real ones. Not magazine covers, but moments that mattered. Candy and Amelia laughing over pancakes, painting each other's nails, even a clumsy selfie at the mall with oversized sunglasses. One cool evening, Amelia sat on the living room couch, her hair loosely tied back, a blanket over her legs. Candy lay quietly beside her, her head on her mother's lap, fingers playing with the hem of her dress. Amelia stroked her daughter's braids slowly, her heart full yet cautious. So much had been lost. So much had been broken. She wanted to hold on to this closeness, this peace, forever. Then, softly, Candy spoke. "Mummy?" Amelia smiled gently. "Yes, baby?" There was a pause, too long for something casual. Candy sat up, looked into her mother's eyes with a seriousness far beyond her years. "I don't want to be the reason you stopped living," she said. Amelia's smile faded. "What? You gave up everything. You stopped smiling. You stopped dreaming. You gave up your work, your company, everything that made you light up," Candy whispered. "I love having you close, but Mummy, someone actually stops living when they stop giving back to life." Amelia's throat tightened. Candy continued. "I used to see you on so beautiful, so smart, so powerful. I saw you win awards and everyone would cheer. I used to brag to my friends, even if I didn't know how to say it out loud. That's my mum. That's Amelia Ada King." Tears filled Amelia's eyes. "But now you are," Candy stammered. "You weren't that woman anymore. You were a shadow, and it broke my heart." "I thought I had to choose," Amelia whispered, "between being there for you or being who I was." "You don't have to choose," Candy replied, her voice now filled with boldness. "You're going back, but this time not without me." Amelia blinked, unsure she heard correctly. "You're going back to work," Candy said, holding her mother's hands. "You're going back to being that woman who inspires the world, but this time I'll be with you. After school, I'll come to your office. I'll do my assignments there, with a female tutor who can help. When you travel, I'll travel with you, if it's safe." Candy smiled wide, wiping a tear from her mother's cheek. "I love your heart, Mum, and it's possible to be a career woman and a committed mother. I believe in you." Amelia couldn't speak. Her daughter, this little girl she once feared she had lost forever, was giving her permission to live again. No, not just permission. A hand to hold while she did. And in that moment, Amelia knew. They were not going back to the past. They were moving forward, together. And this time, Amelia wasn't just chasing purpose. She was chasing it with her purpose right beside her. 3 months later, the sun rose over the Crestville Holdings like it hadn't in months. Staff members stood straighter. Security men tipped their hats with more pride. The front doors, glass, sleek and once symbolic of a woman's legacy, opened again. And this time, Amelia Ada King walked in, not alone. By her side was a little girl in a smart uniform, holding a lunchbox and a big pink backpack, with her natural hair tied into 2 proud buns. Candy. The elevator dinged open, and as they stepped inside, whispers followed. "Is that her daughter?" "She's finally back. She's even more beautiful in person." The elevator reached the top floor. The glass doors of the executive suite opened automatically. Everything had been preserved as Amelia left it. Spotless, polished, powerful, but waiting for its queen to return. Amelia took a deep breath. Candy looked up at her and whispered, "Go show them why the world needs your voice again." The office buzzed with excitement. Meetings were called, press releases prepared. The media world erupted with headlines. Amelia Ada King returns, this time with a twist. Business mogul, mother, and now mentor. Meet the little girl who brought Amelia Ada King back to life. What the public didn't know yet was that Candy wasn't just tagging along. She was becoming a quiet revolution. After school each day, Candy would climb the stairs to her mother's office instead of playing with her toys. She'd sit quietly in the corner, doing her homework while sipping juice and occasionally glancing up to watch her mother doing her job. Sometimes during strategy meetings, Candy's innocent questions brought stunning clarity. "Why are there no women engineers in your factory tour photos?" she once asked during a slideshow. Silence. A week later, Amelia launched the STEM for Girls initiative, sponsoring scholarships and mentorships for underprivileged girls with science dreams. At charity galas, Candy smiled and stood proudly by her mother's side. But unlike most children of moguls, she didn't crave attention. She only craved purpose. And slowly, her heart began to reflect Amelia's strength and compassion. Together, they traveled to Dubai, to Cape Town, to Singapore. Candy learned about business, culture, and kindness, not in a classroom, but beside a mother who had once lost herself in grief, but now found new rhythm in restoration. One evening, after a successful partnership deal in Paris, Candy sat beside her mother on the hotel balcony. "You know, Mum," she said, sipping hot cocoa, "I think this is what love looks like." Amelia turned to her. "What do you mean?" Candy leaned into her, smiling. "When someone lets you walk beside their dreams, not just under them." And just like that, Amelia Adeking smiled wider than she had in years. She wasn't just back in business. She was alive, whole, winning, with her daughter, not as a reason to stop, but as a reason to keep becoming more. Motherhood hadn't ended her purpose, it had deepened it. Hello, besties. This story wasn't just about Amelia and Candy. It was about every child who's ever been neglected, every parent who's ever struggled to balance work and home, and every family learning how to find their way back to love. We learned something powerful today, that parenting is not a one-person job. It takes intentional love, time, and sometimes a lot of tears and healing. But most importantly, it takes togetherness. No child should be made to suffer in silence. No career should be blamed for neglect, and no parent should have to choose between success and their child's smile. Besties, it's possible to win at work and win at home. Let's stop leaving our children behind. Let's bring them along into our dreams, our goals, our offices, our journeys. Let your child see you shine and teach them to shine too. Say no to child abuse. Say yes to intentional parenting. Say yes to balance, career, and care. Together, we can raise powerful, protected, and emotionally whole children. So please, besties, share this video. Let's be a voice for the voiceless. Let's protect our children together. Drop a comment. What's one thing you're willing to do differently to be more present for a child? Until next time, stay strong, stay soft, stay aware, and remember, our children are watching. Let's lead them well. With all my love, your storytelling bestie. Bye for now.